Good evening. The Revenue Agency is tonight grappling with a security breach on an unprecedented scale. Computer disks containing the details of 25 million people have gone missing, exposing all of those people to the risk of identity fraud. The chairman of the Revenue has resigned. The Chancellor, Alistair Darling, said there was no evidence so far that the missing data had been misused. Let's join our political editor, Nick Robinson, at Revenue Headquarters in London.
Hugh, missing tonight not just millions of names, but millions of addresses and pieces of personal data like bank and building society information. Precisely the sort of information we were all told to protect to avoid the risk of identity fraud. Precisely the information that the government have simply lost. Coming home after a lousy day at the office. Paul Gray, the former head of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, which lost, yes that's right, lost the personal details of almost half the British population. He resigned while his boss was left to explain what on earth had happened.
Mr. Speaker, the missing information contains details of all child benefit recipients, records for 25 million individuals and 7.25 million families. These records include the recipient and their children's names, addresses and dates of birth. It includes child benefit numbers, national insurance numbers, and where relevant, bank or building society account details.
This is the place that data was stored, the Child Benefit Office in Washington, Tyne and Wear. This is the place that requested data for auditing, the NAO in London. And this is how it was sent in the internal post, unrecorded, unregistered, and guess what? Undelivered. No one knows where it is now.
Mr. Speaker,
it's lucky that Alistair Darling's hair had turned white long ago. With an anxious Prime Minister at his side, he had just one bit of good news.
Mr. Speaker, the police tell me that they have no reason to believe that this data has found its way into the wrong hands. The police are not aware of any evidence that it has been used for fraudulent purposes or criminal activity.
The copying of huge personal databases onto disks is against Whitehall rules, yet it's happened 3 times this year, once with potentially disastrous effects. On October the 18th, 2 disks were posted containing the entire child benefit database. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that they were reported as missing. 2 days after that, the Chancellor was informed. He told the Prime Minister. 4 days after that, when internal searches failed, the police were called in. The Chancellor was advised only to reveal the news once the banks had had time to prepare security measures. The Commons could scarcely believe what they'd been told.
What is the point of this House passing laws to protect the privacy of people's personal information if those laws are not even enforced in the heart of government?
Yeah. Is it not now the case that the Treasury has replaced the Home Office as the government department that is unfit for purpose? Yeah. And also that he inherited from his predecessor systems of management that are totally dysfunctional?
With no intention of resigning himself, all that was left for Alistair Darling was to apologise.
I recognise that millions of people across the country will be very concerned about what's happened, and I deeply regret this and apologise for the anxiety that will undoubtedly be caused. But
first Northern Rock, now this. What next? Nick Robinson, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, as we heard, the Chancellor stressed that so far there's been no sign that the missing information has been misused, but he called on people to keep a close eye on their bank statements. So how big is the risk to people whose details are on those disks? Our Home Editor, Mark Easton, is here.
Yes, Hugh, thank you. The child benefits fiasco forces government to answer some difficult questions. How big a breach is this? Well, the largest ever. Details on every one of the country's 15 million children plus 10 million adults lost, 7 million bank or building society accounts now at risk. Were the CDs to end up in criminal hands, the password protection could be broken by hackers within minutes. So how worried should people be tonight? Well, there's no evidence to suggest the lost details have ended up in the hands of fraudsters, but the call is for vigilance. Should I close my account? That question. The official advice is No. The details lost not sufficient, say the banks, for fraudsters to gain access to your account. So should I change my security settings? Well, if you're one of those people who uses your child's name or date of birth as a password or PIN, then the advice is yes. Do I need to check my finances? Yes, again. You should look at bank statements, other bills and payments. Any unfamiliar transaction, contact your bank or building society immediately. Should I perhaps call my bank anyway? No. The banks are worried tonight that they could be overwhelmed by concerned customers and ask that people don't contact them unless they spot something suspicious.
You do and should always make sure you're checking your statement. And of course, under the banking code, if you are the innocent victim of fraud as a result of this or any other type of an attack, then you've got great protection under the banking code.
Yet more questions. Is this a growing problem? Well, in September, a CD containing personal details of 15,000 Standard Life customers was lost in the post by the Revenue. Last month, a laptop containing data on hundreds of people was stolen. In fact, 41 laptops have been stolen from the Revenue in the past year. 9,500 such computers have been issued to staff who work from home.
Are we creating the conditions in which mistakes like this can be made? And whilst Paul Gray, I think, has done the honourable thing today in resigning, I think it's the government who should ask itself, did they ask Paul Gray to do the impossible? Deliver more and more with less and less?
Well, today's breach does serious damage to the government's case that it can be trusted with personal information. Its flagship policy on ID cards will come under inevitable attack. But the ramifications may go beyond even that. Modern government is about competence, not so much ideology. Reputation can, like personal data apparently, get easily lost in transit.
Mark, thank you very much. If you have any queries or concerns, then you can log on to the BBC News website. There's a series of questions and answers there at the website. The address, of course, is bbc.co.uk/news. Now then, let's join our political editor, Nick Robinson, once again, who's at Revenue and Customs headquarters. Nick, when you look at the events of today, how damaging has it been to the government?
Well, all too often, Hugh, I talk about this or that political development and I try my best to convince people that it has a direct personal implication for them. Tonight, I really don't have to try. I'm sure there are millions of people wondering about the safety of their bank accounts, wondering what they should do. And until those discs are found, if they are ever found, that anxiety may live on, and they may well blame the government for it. Now, of course, who knows, the disc may turn up in an in tray somewhere saying, remember to put in the post. The fuss will then all be over. Alistair Darling, of course, tonight is sitting there thinking, I didn't do it. There's nothing I could have done, as far as I can tell, to stop it happening, and there's nothing I could have done since beyond what I've done already. But the problem with government is they are blamed for things that go wrong, frankly, whether it is their fault or not, and this government is at the moment presiding over a series of things that go wrong. One senior Labour backbencher said to me tonight, and I do mean one of those who is an avid ally of Gordon Brown, Nick, is it me, or are we beginning to look like the Tories in the 1990s?
Nick, thank you very much. Nick Robinson at Revenue headquarters.